Hey guys, welcome to the video. Today, Justin and I are going to be talking about the Minnesota Timberwolves and the great success they've had to start this season. Before we hop into today's video, I want to stop and just thank you guys so much for 2,000 views on our Anthony Edwards video. I had to restart this intro from a few days ago because at the time we were at like 1,500 views and I was thinking us even get us to 1,000 views, but we're at 2,000 now. So thank you guys so much for the recent support. It means the world to us. So if you want to continue to support us and our channel, please hit that like on this video, hit the subscribe button if you're new, and leave a comment and tell us what you guys think of today's video. But let's not waste any more time and let's get you guys into the video.
With the first pick in the 2015 NBA Draft, the Minnesota Timberwolves select Karl-Anthony Towns from the University of Kentucky.
And here's the post with the most, the 7-foot king of you out there, number 32, Karl-Anthony Towns.
With the first pick in the 2020 NBA Draft, the Minnesota Timberwolves select Anthony Edwards.
Tried by Booker. Leading the league in. Oh my goodness. Oh, in and out dribble. Oh my goodness, now three.
The Minnesota Timberwolves are first in the Western Conference to start off the year, something not many saw coming. The Wolves have a pretty similar roster going into the beginning of the season as they did at the end of last season. One of the more important pieces to this roster is fully healthy again and looking to make a statement. Karl-Anthony Towns, after a slow start to the season, is starting to look like a new player. And I don't mean that in a sense of skills, but how he's been approaching the game. If you look at Cat in the first few games, he was shooting very poorly, especially from three, which is where he's always thrived. Through the first 3 games, he couldn't even put up 20 points and was shooting very poorly. 37% from the field and 23% from 3. Finally, in the Denver game, he dropped 21, but was still shooting poorly and not putting up the best shots. And the Boston game is one Cat would like to forget. Being in constant foul trouble, he eventually fouled out in overtime and turned the ball over 7 times while only putting up 7 points. Yikes. But since his game against New Orleans, Towns has been on a tear. He's shooting efficiently and reminding everyone of the offensive prowess he possesses. In the current month of November, he's averaging 23 points, 8 rebounds, and 3 assists. Now shooting 53% from the field and almost 42% from 3. It almost looks like he's letting the game flow to him and not through him, and taking the good chances he's getting. He's taking around 2 less shots per game, but making 2 more while shooting less. In this case, less is more. If Cat continues this production and stays level-headed, as we know the kind of complainer Cat can be, then this could really start to turn around his identity and career outlook. Rudy Gobert is having an excellent season so far, averaging 12 points and 12 boards and 2 blocks a game. The defensive anchor is providing exactly what this team wanted and needed to become one of the next contenders in this league. His role in locking down the paint has contributed greatly to the Timberwolves and is just a piece of the puzzle to the team's success. And the man we made an entire video for, what is there to say that hasn't been said? This kid is next up. He put the team on his back this year, and just like the pattern we've been seeing, he's improved again this year, and his game is evolving. The mid-range and playmaking parts of his game that are starting to appear, and it's making him a more complete player. 26 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, and a steal and a half per game. Now, we could go on about the greatness Anthony Edwards is exposing us to, but we'd rather you watch our video on him that we posted a few weeks ago. The rest of the roster is filled in quite nicely, and they're putting themselves together and rallying around each other. Jaden McDaniels, one of the best perimeter defenders in the league, has been a little bit injury prone to start the year, but once he gets healthy, we think that he's going to come back in and be the great perimeter defender and corner shooter that he's been over the last few years for the Wolves. Mike Conley is an incredible pickup that they traded D'Angelo Russell for. He's filling the point guard position quite nicely and honestly, probably perfectly for this team. His limited turnovers are perfect for this team, and we've seen them struggle in transition defense over the years, which is why his limited turnovers helps this team so much. When we look at players off the bench like Naz Reid, he's having a great season and living up to the contract that the Wolves signed him to, as he's one of the only players left in the 50-40-90 club, and if he's not, he's just sitting below 39% from 3 this year. At home, he brings the energy to the fans, and the fans give him energy as well. He averages an extra 4 points, a steal, and rebound per game when he's playing in front of the home crowd, and he's an essential piece to the 3-man rotation between Cat and Rudy. So let's break down what the Wolves are doing this year. The offensive load seems to be pretty cut clear. Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns are putting up great numbers to carry the load, and the surrounding cast is supporting greatly. But the defense of the Minnesota Timberwolves is what's setting this team apart, and for once, in the best way possible. The Wolves have one of the best defensive ratings in basketball. Like I talked about with Rudy being an important piece, he just isn't the whole story. The way the Wolves play defense has teams lost, with Jaden McDaniels and Anthony Edwards' ability to switch around screens or play through them into something that may seem like a mismatch is what's giving this team the defensive boost it's always needed. And like I mentioned with Naz Reid being an important piece to the 3-man rotation with Cat and Rudy, we see that even further with the defense. Now, I don't think Naz is a top defender, but what I think is good about Naz's defense is his ability to guard every position averagely. It sounds weird, but Naz doesn't exactly thrive against a set position. But I don't think in most on-ball scenarios I fear that he won't put up a good effort against whoever has the ball. Whatever 2 players amongst the trio when on the floor are able to switch most screens and let one sit deep to play paint and recover on the opener left man. The switching and active feet and hands of the Timberwolves team is transitioning them into a great defensive team. NBA fans are starting to take notice of the Wolves. Anthony Edwards put himself on the map in the last 2 years, and now he's bringing the rest of the team with him. Now, whether or not you want to call them a finals contender is up to you, but this team shouldn't be taken for granted anymore, especially ourselves. We saw the Wolves ending in the 6th seed in the Western Conference video that we uploaded a few months back. They've taken us surprised as much as they've taken the fans. But if you don't think they can be contenders, what does make them contenders? Let's talk about that next.
Alright guys, like Sam just said, the Timberwolves are definitely in contention to come out of the West on top. Right now they do have the number 1 seed, and it's looking like they might maintain that for the rest of the year. Now it's very early to say something like that or to assume that, and I know the Wolves still have a lot of doubters, and you never know what could happen throughout the duration of an NBA season. But let's say the Wolves do maintain the 1st seed. It still feels like a lot of people wouldn't pick them to come out on top of the West. I know a lot of people refer to this Wolves team like the Jazz teams of old, those Rudy Gobert-led Jazz teams that everyone's like, well, they do good in the regular season and they'll win a couple games in the playoffs, maybe even a series, but they won't go very far. And it seems like that's what a lot of people are calling this Wolves team. Now, as we've mentioned, the Wolves have unbelievably better perimeter defenders than those Jazz teams ever did. You know, those Jazz teams were putting Royce O'Neal on the number 1 perimeter threat from the other teams, where the Wolves have Jaden McDaniels, Anthony Edwards, Nickeil Alexander-Walker. A lot better defenders than those Jazz teams that Rudy led ever had. Now, a lot of people also just don't know if the Wolves can do it because of some other reasons. And the one thing that I think the Wolves absolutely need to be able to take that next step is a scorer off the bench. Now, obviously our bench has some unique pieces like, Naz Reid, who is a very talented player coming off the bench, especially offensively. Troy Brown Jr. has looked much better as of late. However, when I say a scorer off the bench, I'm talking someone that can consistently create their own shot or even run the offense. So an offensive-minded guard is almost exactly what this team needs. Because if you watch any amount of Timberwolves games during the year, you will notice when Anthony Edwards or Karl Anthony Towns is not on the floor, the offense and the team in general looks sluggish and slow and unsure of themselves. Now, we've seen occasionally Naz Reid have spurts of 8 straight points, or Troy Brown Jr. goes crazy and hits a couple shots, but they're not always creating it for themselves. It's off the catch and shoot or transition or something like that. This Wolves team needs a guard or a player that can create off the bench. I know some people have referenced Bones Highland for that. I'm not sure if he will be in contention. Plus, a couple of good teams have already said he's not good, and he hasn't played for them, so that remains to be seen. But Tim Connolly does love him some Bones Highland, so that is a good possibility. There's also someone like Tyus Jones. A lot of Minnesotans want to bring him back into the fold. Tyus Jones leads the league in assist turnover ratio, and he would do a good job of creating things for others in that second unit and a good job of running the offense that seems to struggle when the 2 stars of this team are out. Now, a third option, which is already in-house, is Shake Milton. Now, Shake has struggled mightily to start this year, but we've seen before he is very excellent, especially at scoring. That's what he did all the time in Philly. He averaged 22 points as a starter when he started for Philadelphia. So, Shake's got the ability to turn it up. He might just be in his own head. And I did see on Twitter they were suggesting we do a standing ovation for Shake Milton, similar to what the Phillies fans did for Trey Turner in their baseball season, which helped him a ton. After that standing ovation, he absolutely turned it up and became one of the best shortstops, if not best players in baseball. So maybe we should try the same thing for Shake, and it'd be interesting to see what happens when the Wolves play again at Target Center. But yeah, just those are the most important things I think the Timberwolves need in order to make the next step. Is guard scoring, right? They need to stay healthy as well. That's obviously an important factor. But the starting lineup is about as good as you could find in the association. Mike Conley, one of the best point guards in the league in terms of not turning it over. I believe he's second in the league in assist turnover ratio. He's a smart player, good defensively. He's not going to be, whoever offense ran on him. Anthony Edwards is one of the best players in the league, probably the best shooting guard in the league, maybe number 2 behind Devin Booker, but he's an excellent player. Jaden McDaniels, one of the better defenders in the league, and his length allows him to switch on a lot of pick and rolls, which people try to attack the Timberwolves with, but it does not always work because Karl Anthony Towns is having the best defensive season of his career. Number 2 in the league in defensive rating behind. Next up, Rudy Gobert, their all-star, all-defensive player. Number 4 coming up, Rudy Gobert, just holding it down there along with his floor mate Cat. They're both playing excellently defensively. So that starting lineup, offensively and defensively, is some of the best you can find in the league. And the bench unit isn't bad. I'm not saying they need to overhaul the bench unit. Kyle Anderson is a great player off the bench, does a lot for you, gets a good amount of points, rebounds, and assists. He can't shoot, though. That is one problem. We already mentioned Naz Reid could be a 6 Man of the Year competitor. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, once he doesn't have to start in place of McDaniels, I think the bench will be much better off of that as well, having him coming in. And Jordan McLaughlin, when he comes back, maybe McLaughlin is the answer to that point guard or backup guard problem. That remains to be seen. But all in all, that's the one piece I think this Timberwolves team is missing, is just a backup point guard or a backup shot creating. I was talking to my friends. I mentioned someone like Gordon Hayward would be really cool to have off the bench for the Timberwolves, but I think his contract situation is a little too messy for the Wolves to touch. But if you don't think the Wolves are currently championship contenders, I don't know how you can say that if they get a good scoring guard off the bench. To me, that makes them an absolute championship contender and maybe the favorite to come out of the Western Conference. They match up so well with some of the top teams in the West that I just find it hard to not take the Timberwolves coming out of the West now. Well, guys, that'll do it from us here at Fans Eye View. from Sam and me, myself, Justin, thank you so much for watching this video. Again, if you made it this far, go ahead and drop a like or comment that you made it this far. That helps us out a ton. And, if you want to hit that subscribe button, I promise I will love you. Have a good rest of your day, guys.